Hi, you're watching Access Asia on France 24. I'm Julia Kim. Coming up in today's show. Burmese hopes of a democratic government falter as authorities step up their crackdown on dissent online, threatening freedom of speech. The world's capital for sex tourism is told to clean up its act. Thailand's ruling junta on a mission to stamp out prostitution in the city of Pattaya. And a new home for China's aging national treasures. Find out where elderly pandas go after they've retired from life in the public eye. We begin first in Burma, where Aung San Suu Kyi has just celebrated 1 year in power. But it's a bumpy transition for the Nobel laureate and her NLD party, who govern alongside the army. The Burmese government has come under fire for its treatment of the Muslim Rohingya minority, and more recently for the issue of freedom of speech. A law called 66D punishes defamation on the internet, and all sides are using it to quash dissent. Those arrested are detained for months prior to their trial, and such cases are on the rise. Our regional correspondent Clovis Casali and Charles Dupoisé have more.
At the South Dagon Pagoda, Zhao Zhao Ong found the peace and quiet he needed after spending 6 months behind bars. This Burmese had dared to criticise online the Member of Parliament he voted for and who belongs to Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD ruling party.
They put 150 people in cells that were built for 50 people. We were treated like animals, like chickens trapped in a cage. But I have no regrets. As a citizen, I have the right to speak out. They use their power to imprison me. If I see in the future something that's wrong, I won't hesitate to criticize again.
Like dozens of others, including journalists and politicians, he was detained for months awaiting his trial on charges of online defamation under the 66D telecommunications law. The military junta is no longer fully in charge, but freedom of speech remains curtailed under the de facto leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. Human rights activist Wei Wei New set up in Rangoon workshops to offer young Burmese courses on the principles of democracy.
We are seeing more and more charges and more cases. No one's freedom of speech is secure right now. So we are afraid that the critical voice will be toned down, and it will become a threat to the democracy.
Many Burmese hoped the Nobel laureate would amend the 66D law. And they are still waiting. Mong is one of them. He himself was sent to jail after a poem of his irritated the head of the army. But this was under the military junta, and he doesn't understand why the situation hasn't improved.
The NLD government said that they would guarantee freedom of speech, but when they got into power, they changed. Now they just want to protect themselves from critics on the internet. That's why they don't want to amend the law. It's terrible.
They're allowed to go here. Not there. Just here.
Outside a Rangoon court, we find the poet Mong trying to reassure the wife of a government official on trial for criticising the army chief's crackdown on the Rohingya community.
This law must be amended. It's not a fair case.
He is sentenced to 6 months in jail. His family is slightly relieved. They were expecting worse.
Now, it's hard to imagine today, but impoverished North Korea was once better off than wealthy South Korea. Decades of mismanagement has seen nuclear-armed Pyongyang descend into stagnation. But under current leader Kim Jong-un, economic change could be in the air. North Korea's leader had publicly denounced free market reforms as the filthy wind of bourgeois liberty. But that wind is nonetheless blowing through the communist nation.
It could be a scene from a propaganda film. This Pyongyang silk factory is the kind of image the North Korean regime likes to portray. Tourists and foreign media are invited to visit. Officially, it produces 200 tons of silk every year.
Grade A is the lowest grade. There are grades from A to 5. The world recognizes up to grade 5, but our factory has managed to produce up to grade 7.
Managers say the raw materials here are all domestically sourced, as dictated by North Korea's guiding ideology of juche, or self-sufficiency. This doctrine was devised by the country's founder, Kim Il-sung, born 105 years ago and grandfather to the current leader Kim Jong-un. The ruling Workers' Party line is that there's no reason to change.
We are a socialist country, so we stick to our socialist principles economically. We do not push for national reforms, adopting a market economy.
Yet economic change is visible in the capital. There were just a handful of taxis a few years ago. Now they're common. Smartphones, too, are beginning to enter the market. Imported goods are to be found in government-run shops or street stalls, though permission for foreign journalists to film such places is almost never granted.
North Korean government is well aware of that situation and has allowed, to some extent, the opening of black markets so as to satisfy the needs of their people.
As China did in the 1980s, North Korea has permitted itself a shot of capitalism. Where it will lead is up in the air, given one of Pyongyang's core beliefs is its superiority to free market South Korea. Meaning this picture postcard image of a socialist utopia is likely to be projected by the North for some time yet.
Known as Sin City, Thailand's hedonistic paradise Pattaya is home to tens of thousands of sex workers and attracts hordes of foreign sex tourists. But this is exactly the type of reputation the country's ruling junta is trying to clean up. Police and soldiers are on the alert as growing reports of underage prostitution, drug abuse and organised crime further muddy Pattaya's name.
On patrol in Thailand's Sin City. Pattaya, lying just along the coast from Bangkok, is famous for its beaches, bars and booming sex industry. But following lurid headlines about gangland shootings and sex tourism, Thai authorities are hoping to clean up its image. City police have recently stepped up their presence along the famous bar strip known as Walking Street.
We've suppressed and arrested people involved in the obscene and dirty shows. Now you can see that those shows, or the ones that damaged the city's image, have decreased, and we're trying to make them disappear.
Last year, some 12 million tourists, both Thai and foreign, visited Pattaya, which first became famous as a resort town for American soldiers during the Vietnam War. And for some, go-go bars like this one are the main attraction. Technically, prostitution is illegal in Thailand, but often clients can pay a so-called bar fine, which allows them to leave with a dancer. What happens then is private. That loophole's been in place for decades, but is rarely acknowledged in public by officials. Most are keener to emphasize Pattaya's sports scene and family-friendly resorts.
When you go back to your countries, please have good memories, beauty and happiness, and come back to Pattaya again.
A UN report in 2014 suggested more than 100,000 women work in Thailand's sex industry. And while that demand for sex work exists, Pattaya is unlikely to clean up its act overnight.
As the Chinese government faces the challenges of an aging population, so too are Chinese zookeepers. Giant pandas in captivity outlive their counterparts in the wild, and once they reach 20, well, they're considered old-timers. Now, to cater to the special needs of aging pandas, China has opened a retirement home just for them.
They're a national treasure in China, and a glimpse of them is bound to put a smile on any face. They're, of course, giant pandas. While they may have been taken off the endangered species list, the beloved black and white bear still faces a plethora of challenges, especially the aging ones, which they're considered to be at 20.
The food that we give to young and old pandas is basically the same. But the teeth of the old pandas are not as sharp as those of the younger adults.
Over the years, Xu Yalan, who's one of several keepers at the research center here, has developed a few tricks.
I do this to have her open her mouth, and then I look at her gums and teeth.
While feeding a customized meal, she performs several exercises aimed at checking the panda's teeth and eyesight. She also encourages her to stand up to make her stretch her limbs. The keeper's tasks during the day are aplenty. They also have to clean the enclosures, dispose of bamboo, and prepare meals for the 30 pandas.
Looking at Chao Yang's behavior and her age, you can't help but think about an old human being that has difficulties eating and walking. Taking care of an old panda is just like taking care of an old person.
With captive pandas living longer than ever and their list of physical needs growing, let's hope these diets and exercise plans improve their quality of life.
And finally, there's no square to spare in Beijing's public toilets. Authorities going high-tech to crack down on toilet paper bandits who have plundered the washroom at Temple of Heaven Park for 10 years. Instead of free-for-all rolls, a dispenser records the face of each user before ejecting 70 centimeters of paper. Visitors have to wait 9 minutes for a second helping, and though some have complained it's too long a wait, others say it's done the job of flushing out thieves. And that's it from me. See you next week. Stay tuned to France 24.